want to talk a bit about transdisciplinary approaches towards tackling manifold aspect of the reality. So in this talk, I'll be mainly focusing on two main concepts. The first one, I would like to propose a kind of a framework which can be considered as a mechanism that can be adapted in developing sound and complete solution when we are tackling real-world problematic situations. The second concept, or the second thing that I want to highlight in this talk is kind of a modeling approach that can be adapted when you're formulating solutions to the real-world problems. So basically, these are the two concepts that I'm going to share with you all as a novel approach when we are finding solutions. So before getting into the approach that I'm proposing, the framework and the modeling approach, let me first have your focus onto the very much complex societal and wicked problems. Please pay your attention to the first image, the first picture, which we all have experienced in the recent past, the pandemic COVID-19. The second picture that I would like to draw your attention onto the disaster that happened very recently, causing huge marine and environmental pollution. The second picture that I want to show you is the drought right now we all are experiencing. So when you look at all these situations that we all faced in recent past, there are some common key features that we can identify. The first key feature, challenging key feature that I would like to highlight here is the intrinsic complexity of these situations. That is the very first thing that we all have to deal with. The second key concept that I would like to highlight in this context is the multiform character that we all experiencing when we look at these situations. The third key point that I would like to highlight here, all these situations are what we call deeply united. It is true that when we look at the scientific approaches, the normal approach that we all are adopting when finding solutions for the cases that we are going to handle is basically doing a kind of a fragmentation, a kind of a decomposition. So what we call mini-world being defined, and based on the mini-world that we understood, we try to deliver solutions. But the situation in the real context is not the same. So that is the key point that I want to share with in this approach that we all are in need to consider. So this complexity is not limited only to those three key challenging features that I mentioned, but it has very many other dimensions. For example, societal issues, the cultural issues, maybe we have to consider when we're delivering solutions, the political influences, there may be economic constraints that we need to consider. The solution that we all are developing needs some kind of infrastructure on which we can deliver those solutions. There may be poor infrastructure facilities when we're trying to deliver something. Not only that, there may be administrative issues, there may be environmental factors that we have to take into account. But the list that I have listed here, is that all? No, it is not. There may be very many other dimensions that we all have to consider when we all are proposing a solution for the real-world context. Now, to get to the transdisciplinary approach that I want to explain in this talk, before getting into the two key concepts that I mentioned, the framework and the modeling approach, let me set the context on which I can propose those two ideas. So here, this is very, very much famous approach. When we are thinking of a situation like, for example, in our societies, we have different structures, social structures, like an institute, maybe higher education institute, in which they are mainly like dedicated for developing, creating new knowledge, and the skill sets that we need in developing those solutions. But when you look at the situation happening mostly, in most cases, are very much what we call hyper-specialization. So we have very much focused view on the world. With that understanding only, we try to deliver solutions, right? So when we look at the solution that we have been developing and trying to solve real-world issues, they are not very much promising. So there are very many lapses that need to be addressed and find solutions. So therefore, we were inventing, or we were trying out very many other possibilities. So let me just go through 3 such evolving approaches for us to deliver solutions for the real-world context. Let me take the very first one. So this is a diagram which you all can understand. You can see there are 3 plants kept close by. So this is the picture that I would like to take kind of analogous to the multidisciplinary approach that we all oftentimes using. So in the multidisciplinary approach, what is happening, we do different knowledge contribution depending on the discipline that you all are participating, and keeping the solutions that you got close by. So the term that we are using here called juxtapositioning, right? You keep the things called like a book chapter. You may be dedicating different chapters for different disciplines and claiming this is the solution that can solve the problem that we are trying to solve. Is that promising? Can such solutions deliver what we call successful, sustainable, total kind of a solution? So let me get a schematic diagram to illustrate the situation, what is happening when you go to, when you're adapting an approach, something similar to multidisciplinary. So this picture tells the story. So you still keep in your discipline and trying to find kind of a knowledge or the solution and deliver that to tackle the real world problem. But when you look at the problem space, in this schematic diagram, you can see some vacant spaces which need to be addressed. So this is the places that you need some solutions, right? So we have seen, those are the main issues that we always finding when we try to deliver something just based on your own discipline. So then to overcome this situation, we have another approach came up, which we call transdisciplinary. To get to the transdisciplinary, just have your focus onto this diagram, which is again plants, right? So those different varieties of plants very nicely intertwine to create a very nice looking design, like a promising solution could be seen sometimes in this type of approach. So here, what is happening, right? You take your own specific approach based on the discipline, but at the same time, when you're analyzing a problem, you do the analysis in parallel, right? So after completing the analysis, what we are doing in this context, when you say transdisciplinary, you cross the boundary, you interact with the other domain, the participants from other disciplines, and try to find the solution by integrating the approaches. Here, what we see is kind of a unification of the solution that we are proposing. This is much better than the previous approach, because in the previous approach, we had very much like boundary specific. You are in your territory and try to deliver the solution. But in this case, you cross the boundary, but still remember, as per the diagram that we had, the roots are on your own discipline, right? So again, if you look at the schematic diagram for this situation, transdisciplinary approaches, you can see there are different disciplines. You may be delivering something from the same discipline. Something may be the common areas, like the cross-boundary territories can be taken as kind of delivering some knowledge. But still, you can see some empty spaces. So this is another approach better than the multidisciplinary approach. But my key idea here is about transdisciplinary approach. Now we'll look at what is it all about. Now here, again, let me take a diagram. We all are very much to be green, and we like to have plants and trees. So therefore, I took analogous example from that sector. So here you can see a hybrid version of a plant. You combine two things and create a new one, right? So this is a very nice analogous illustration for the transdisciplinary approach. So what is happening here, the term that we use is called knowledge integration. You combine different knowledge to create a new knowledge, right? To do that, what is needed? We need a thing what we call intellectual space. So all the participants from different disciplines need to work together without considering your own territories to create new knowledge. So in this case, my proposal is there is a very much important aspect which we call meta-language. Because when you are creating knowledge from your own discipline, what is important, we are using our own jargons. We are using our own notations. We are using our own language. So when you just limit your expressions onto your own discipline notations, language, so the communication with other participants from different disciplines are very much limited. So therefore, the way out of that difficulty is you can raise the level, you can abstract your language to the next level, which is much general. The majority can be understood what you are expressing. So that is what we call meta-language. So that is also one of the parts that we need to consider when you're looking at the transdisciplinary approach. So this can be considered as a universal language for comprehensive knowledge. So not only from your own discipline, even the others can understand and work together to do the new knowledge delivery for finding solutions for the real-world complex problems. Now, up to this point, I briefly introduced 4 different approaches, but now what I am proposing here, kind of a mechanism from which we can do real transdisciplinary solution development. For that, okay, so this is the schematic diagram again, explain the transdisciplinary thing. Here you can see the problem space being totally covered with the mix or with the blend that we did from different disciplines. So this is very much promising compared to the previous approaches when you want to tackle complex real-world issues. Now, how do we do that? For my proposal, my recommendation is to adopt this framework. What framework? Risk OC framework. Now let me, this is like a 6-dimensional framework, or you can say 6-folded framework. The first letter is very much important one, which we need to be responsible. Whatever the thing that you do, you have to have some kind of accountability there. So in that concept, we have all these responsible research, responsible innovations type of things. The second letter I would like to propose is what we call inclusive kind of a development. So in that context, there are very many things that you could read out. For example, things like participatory development, citizen science, action research. All these are very much appropriate if you want to do real transdisciplinary solution development. The next one is, of course, all what we need are everlasting or sustainable solutions. So in that case, of course, you can look at this, what we call sustainability science. Then the K. So this is again a very much, controversial. Sometimes people, they don't like this, but still this has been proposed by even International Science Council. So if you go to their website and look at the transdisciplinary, they're also proposing this approach when you're creating a solution through the transdisciplinary. What is it? Knowledge integration. What knowledge? Could be indigenous knowledge, it could be traditional knowledge, there may be other possible knowledge systems. Now, we have very many examples. If you look at a country like Sri Lanka, there are very many different knowledge systems, right? If you look at a Western medicine, they don't let any other party to get into their territory. So that is not something proposed by International Science Council. So what I am proposing here, look, you need knowledge integration. right? So this is the 4 letters. Last 2, we need to be open. Open science and open innovation that I would like to recommend in this framework, right? Right? Even, within the context of research, we look at what are the IP laws, what are the copyrights available. Try to limit the access to the knowledge. So that is not something recommended here. So you have to open it. So then you can have the complete participation, inclusive kind of a development. The last one, but very important, is the collaboration. Right? So you have to have a mechanism, all the other parties to collaborate. Now, this is the framework that I'm proposing, 6-dimensional. I would like to name it as a risk OAC model. Now, let me propose kind of an approach in which we can develop these solutions. So this approach is very simple, very abstract, but very simple. Let me introduce that approach, right? So here, what we need to do is, you have to look at the spectrum of stakeholders that you need to take into account, right? So basically, I would like to propose since I am with the computing background, normally we categorize that into 2 categories, the solution users and solution developers. Very simple. So then you have to look at solution developers. They have the required knowledge, they have required skill set in developing solutions. So then the second category are the category normally we don't care very much, but they are the users of our solutions, the users, right? So when you look at the users, one very important thing is you have to understand their concerns. So that is what we call requirements in computing terminology, right? You have to have very clear understanding what they're asking, right? Then from the developer side, what we need to understand, how do you present your solution? A kind of a view which can be communicated with all participating partners in your solution development approach. Now, this kind of a matrix, very nice. Right now, it is empty. Each and every cell, depending on the context in which you are trying to develop the solution, you have to understand and fill that. So when you're filling, again, the recommendation is don't limit to the notation, don't limit to the language that can be understood by only within your community, that particular discipline. So if you can generalize it to all, you can go for the real transdisciplinary solution. Now, when you're filling those spaces on the matrix, I would like to propose kind of a modeling approach. What is this approach? Very simple. Normally, when you're developing any solutions, this is the very first thing that you need to understand. What is it? Why you need that solution. Right? Without that, normally you should not start finding solutions. You have to have very clear understanding. What is the reason you need a solution for that particular problem? So this can be seen as very many technical terminologies. For example, you can look at this as the business motivation model if it is in the business context, like a goal model, right? So there is a starting point. So you clearly have a clear picture why we are trying to solve this solution. Having understood that, we go to the next stage, what is needed. So what, again, depending on the context, for example, it could be kind of an economic proposition, it could be benefits that we are targeting at, it would be some kind of a product that we are targeting at. What is it, right? So that needed to be expressed in a terminology anybody can understand. And finally, when you are very clear with the goals and the target value that you are going to create, then what is needed, you have to have a mechanism to understand how you are going to achieve that what, right? So this is very simple approach. Normally, we adopt that when we develop solutions. Goal model could be a value model, and then could be some kind of a process model in the modeling terminology. Right. So with that, I would like to wind up my talk. Now, you placing transdisciplinary approach on top of all the other earlier approaches that we were adopting. So by applying this framework that I propose, risk OC propose, hopefully we can do real transdisciplinary solution delivery. Thank you.